So I want to talk to you guys about something that I haven't talked a whole lot about, but I thought this is a great thing to share because one of the reasons it's a good thing to share is because it's kind of behind the scenes or underneath the surface that people don't see, but we talk about it. And when I say we talk about it, we say the mindset. Everybody says like the mindset, right? Got to get your mindset right. Uh, get your mind right, you know? Well, the first time I was introduced to this concept of getting your mind right was the movie The Secret. It became wildly popular. I was already into personal development at that time, but then I watched that movie, and I guess the first time I was introduced to this concept of just mindset was in Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. And he said, thoughts are things. And he talked about the ether, and the ether is just everything. Like it's everywhere. There's what looks to be space between, say, the microphone right now. From here to here looks like there's space. There's actually things happening there. Like think of like radio waves. Like radio waves, uh they're already there. You just have to tune the dial to get in alignment, like let's say 93.9. If that's your station, let's just say, well then it exists. It already exists. But you have to turn the dial to the 93.9 to actually pick it up. It's already there. It's already in the ether. So just I started to think about that and I thought, well, every single time I have a thought, it's leaving my body and it's leaving my mind. It's traveling into the ether. And if I want to attract something, if I want to create something, then I need to watch my thoughts because every time I think a thought, it's going out into it lives. Think of it like a living thing. And The Secret talked about this, and they call it the law of attraction. It became really popular. And then later, all the people on the law of attraction all came and said, well, there's way more to that. You have to take action too. You can't just sit around and think about the things you want and just expect it to happen. So I get all that, but I want to tell you one of my first things when I realized that this is real. And we were in a position where we excuse me, where we needed a new shop. Like we were in this little bitty shop. First we started in my garage, and then we needed a new shop, and we started looking around town, and I just felt like they were all too expensive, and they weren't like they were not great at all. Like they sucked. And then yet they wanted all this money for it. So kept looking, and one of my coworkers, because everybody on the team knew. So this is another thing, another concept, like what you think about, you bring about, what you speak about, you bring about. So I had shared with everybody on the team, like, hey, we're looking for a shop. We need something bigger. We're growing. We got to figure this out. And so one of my team members found this place that was for rent. And there was a phone number just on a piece of cardboard or something, or maybe a sign that was stuck in the ground next to this place. And so we called the person and we set up a time to go look at it. And when we went and looked at it, the owner of that shop said, why don't you just buy it? And I'd never even thought of that before because I just didn't feel like I was in a position financially to do something like that, to commit to something like that. And so I thought about it. And now that the seed had been planted in my mind, like, what if I was able to buy it? And I had already begun like fixing my credit at that point. It wasn't totally fixed, but it was way better than it was just the year prior to that and the year before that. So I had been working on making sure that, I took care of my credit. And so I said, you know what? What's it going to hurt to ask? Like this is a success principle too, is like ask, 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 ask. So I just asked my banker, I'm like, would it be possible for me to buy this, And he looked into it and he said, yeah, we'd be interested in, we'd be able to loan you the money to do this. And so talked to the owner, and what do you know? Uh, there was a space in between the couple of days since the person who owned the building who had made this comment and said, why don't you just buy it? So there was a few days in between there, and I just once the seed had been planted, I started to visualize for the first time. Like hadn't really spent much time visualizing, but I just would close my eyes and I would just think about what it would be like to own that shop. And I imagined myself walking through the front door, and there was like a counter right there at the front door. And there was, somebody behind the counter who was greeting customers as they walked in. And I turned right since I had seen the shop. I knew what it was like, the floor plan in my mind. So I turned right and I walked back into the shop area from the office side, and there's people working, and you could just feel the energy. Like I could just feel the energy just visualizing this. And it was just super exciting. I walked around, went back to my office and sat down, and that was it. Like pretty simple, just a short little visualization of like what it would be like to have customers walking into our place of business, and to have the shop and all the busyness and the energy was just felt great, felt really good. And I started visualizing that. Well, sure enough, the banker said, "Yeah, we can do this." And so we moved forward and we ended up buying the building. And a couple years later, we remodeled a whole bunch of it because it used to have like 4 or 5 garage doors on one side of it, and then the other side was the 2 bays, which is what was like the shop area. And there was only like one little space that you could have an office in. That was it. So we had to build some walls, and then we started taking out those doors, and we turned that whole other wing, which was the west wing, into offices as we grew. Had an office for my general manager, an office for wound up eventually having an office for me on that wing. Had an office for our bookkeeper, and then uh, later, one of my teammates built walls around the front area, so we separated into 2 offices, one for the dispatcher, one for the CSR. But a couple years um, before those walls were built, I had a deja vu moment where I walked through the door. Somebody was being helped at the counter. I turned right and I went towards the shop area, and people were working out there, some of my teammates, and you could just feel the energy, just like I had envisioned. And so this whole what you think about, you bring about, and thoughts are things all came from originally from Napoleon Hill. When I read that book, Think and Grow Rich, that's where I first learned of the concept. And so I had envisioned for years um, what I would like to see in my bank account. And even though I never use ATMs, like I hadn't used an ATM in 20 years, probably 25 years at this point. I don't use them. So, but for some reason, when I closed my eyes and began to visualize, that was my visualization, was walking up to an ATM, putting my card in and punching my number in, and then it would show me my balance. And so I always had this number that was my balance. And when the business sold, the first check that I got, um, had that number on it. Like, it's crazy. I wish I would have envisioned a bigger number, but I was super happy with it. And but it's crazy how it works. We don't know when it's going to show up. We don't know how fast it's going to actually materialize. But when you visualize something and you have the emotions and the feelings behind it, it's the emotions that everybody says. And I truly believe, like, you have to feel it, feel what it would be like while you're in this space, or living in the home that you always wanted to live in. And I'm guilty just as the next person. Like, I don't do this as often as I should. Even having even having the experience of it working, it's something that I don't do like I should be doing it every day. So I'm going to challenge myself, and I'll ask you to challenge yourself to begin this process. In my book, HVAC Millionaire, I talk about this process because I'm very familiar with it. Even though I don't practice it every single day, I know it works. But I talk about it in my book, HVAC Millionaire 25 Success Principles for Getting What You Want in Life and Business, because this is something that is truly like it's a success principle that just works. And I've experienced it multiple occasions. But that was the very first time that it ever happened. And it blew my mind. So part of getting your mind right is becoming attuned to the right frequency that your success lives on, because there are multiple different ways. There are multiple, like all realities exist right now. It just depends on where you're at on what frequency you're vibrating at. So if we can change our frequency and we start vibrating on a higher level to get to that higher level that we're trying to attain, and you feel it and you visualize it, what it looks like, feels like, then I'm telling you, it works. It's not woo-woo. It's actually scientific. Even though it doesn't sound like like science, it sounds woo-woo, but it's very scientific. You have to have a visualization of what it is you actually want in life and visit that frequently. Like, so in my book, I talk about how to build this picture because not everybody is good at visualization. Some people aren't, they don't use their imagination often enough. So it feels hard to them. And so one of my mentors says, like, okay, well, close your eyes for a moment. I want you to imagine that you're sitting in your car or your work van. Just close your eyes. Like, what do you see? And then the person will start saying, well, okay, well, there's a cup holder. I see the radio. I see the steering column. I see the steering wheel. I see the dashboard. I see just my headache rack behind me if I'm sitting in my work van. Like, you start to visualize that you're literally visualizing. So you do have an imagination. You can create your future by visualizing and creating a picture of what that looks like. Because so people who think that they don't or can't, the truth is that they can. And that's a good experiment right there to realize that your mind's eye has the power to see things that aren't currently your surrounding. You can visualize them. You can imagine them, if you will. So when we started to do this, when we do this on a regular basis, because I had visited that multiple times before it actually happened in my mind's eye. And then I saw The Secret, and I continued to study personal development, and that's where all this stuff comes from. But there's basically you're either, I think it's called didactic, or yeah, I can't remember the name of it. If you're a good visualization person or not, just know that you're capable of doing it. Perfectly capable. Because hopefully just in that little brief thing that I just showed you, you understand that you actually are, and you just did it. If you imagine sitting in your truck, your work truck, or sitting in your car. So you're perfectly capable, and it's just a case of forming. So now I think of it like in the way I describe it, it's like building a movie set, right? If you were going to build a movie set, you would start to you would begin to think about, okay, what does this scene look like? What would we need to move into the scene to make it look like that? And so so now all you got to do is just determine what it is that I actually want. So what is it that you want. Let's say, for instance, you want a pool and you want a hot tub and you want your backyard and your patio to look some way. You got a waterfall, maybe. So now you just begin to build it piece by piece, like, oh, well, I want a waterfall, and here's what I want it to look like. If you don't know what you want it to look like, well, search online and find something that you like and imagine that. Like, imagine you had that, and that's your backyard. So you would pick that, then your pool, and then your hot tub, and then your backyard, and your little grilling station area, let's just say. So you're just going to picture all the things that you actually want. Usually, if there's something that you've wanted, you've searched for it and you've looked for it online. So you have an idea of what your ideal version of that would be. So then when you have that and you know what that looks like, you can start to close your eyes and just build it. Build the scene. And once it's built, what you'll find, because it's going to hold space in your mind, in your mind's eye, when you close your eyes, you can go right to that space at will. So it doesn't take a tremendous amount of time to visualize every single day if you spend time doing this, because once you build the scene, and you want to look at it when you build the scene as if it's first person. You're not like separate from your body and you're watching yourself sit in your nice backyard that you just visualized. No, you are actually in your body. So when you look left, when you look down, you're going to see your feet and see it from that first person perspective. So whatever it is, like if you want your team to be aligned, I know this sounds woo woo and whatever. You want your team to be aligned. What would it feel like to have your team be aligned, rowing in the same direction, everybody on point, everybody being incredibly productive, everybody engaged within your business? You've got to see that and feel it. And then you're going to have to take steps to make that happen, of course. That's where you can't just sit around and think and feel this stuff of your perfect backyard or the perfect team all working in synchronicity and everything just functioning like a well-oiled machine. Like it's not just going to happen. You still have to take steps, like the uh from the building that I wound up purchasing for the business. I had already taken steps towards that. So maybe my subconscious already knew that I'm going to need this and I'm going to need good credit. So I had already taken steps towards fixing my credit to make it a possibility for me to be able to purchase the building. So it's possible that you're already moving kind of towards what you want already, but now once you become aware, awareness is always the first step. So just being aware of what it is that you want, what happens is the reticular activating system, just a portion of your brain that since you've determined that this is important to me, what happens is your brain starts picking up all the opportunities around you that's going to help you take a step and get closer to getting that thing that you want, whether it is an aligned team or that perfect backyard or whatever it is that you're wanting, that house or that car or that shop, or it's whatever it is you want. You're going to start seeing evidence around you. That's the reticular activating system. So it's like this. It's like if I said, right now, let's do a little experiment. If I said, I want you to look around your room right now and tell me everything that's blue. What's blue? What's blue? What's blue? Just look around. Just look for everything blue. Blue, blue, blue. What do you see? Blue, 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 blue. Just continue to look for blue. And then I said, okay, now that you've done that, now tell me what you saw that was red. And you're going to have a really hard time seeing anything that was red or recalling anything that you just saw that was red. That's because your reticular activating system was on alert to watch for anything that was blue. So when you set your mind to understanding what I want, like I want to find blue things, then all of a sudden you're going to start seeing all this evidence all around you that there is blue all around you. It's the same with any amount of success or any amount of growth that you're looking, or whether it be material things or whether it be intangible things. Like I want a closer relationship with my wife, let's say, if that's what you want, or your husband. Well, if that's what you want, now you're aware that this is what I want. Like if you don't become aware of what it is that you want and you're just completely undecided on what you want, then you're not going to see any evidence. You're not going to see any opportunity in taking a step towards what you want. But once you become aware and you become attuned, like you're turning to the right frequency, all of a sudden you see that there's so many opportunities surrounding you. Like there's opportunities to develop a better relationship with your spouse. There's opportunities to uh, move closer towards getting that backyard that you want that I was talking about earlier, or the new shop that you want. So one of the things that some of the secret, the movie The Secret, the teachers, is hey, it's like, go take a test drive in the car that you want to drive. Go like feel what it feels like to sit in the seat. For us in that shop, I knew what it felt like to walk through the doors of the shop. I knew the layout of the shop, so it helps to have that real experience, that real interaction. So if there's a home that you would like to purchase someday, or a style of home that you like, well, go to an open house somewhere. Go to an open house that has a house that's open for you to go view, that is in the neighborhood that you want to live in, or the area that you want to live in. Experience it, because that's going to give you a reference in your mind's eye to visualize actually being there and living in that, to know what it would feel like. And then here's the thing too, with the shop, when I got the shop, it was not a big deal either way. I knew that I could either rent it or I could buy it. So the level of importance that I placed upon owning the shop was virtually nothing. I was not invested, or I was not going to be heartbroken if I wasn't able to purchase the shop. And that's another part of the whole visualization and the whole manifestation and law of attraction stuff, is you can't be upset, or you can't place such a high level of importance on it that you're going to be suffering because your your visualization is not matching, and what you actually want is not matching where you actually are. You can't place it on such a high shelf of importance, because then you begin to just resist it. And because there's all different ways for things to happen that doesn't actually get what you want. So you can't make it so important that it consumes you and you're going to be actually sad. Because when you're sad because you don't have what you want, you're actually thinking about what you don't want, which is what you currently have. And we don't want to live in that frequency. We want to live in a higher frequency of what it is that you want. So anyhow, I thought I would. This is something I haven't talked about at quite such a deep level. I could talk about it for a long time because it's just something that I believe in, and I know that if you try it, you will experience the same thing. I even have a little experiment. If you haven't grabbed my book yet, HVAC Millionaire, I have a little experiment that I can promise you, and you can uh, try this experiment with other people on your team, and try it with your spouse. And I did it with like 4 people on my team, and I did it with myself, and it absolutely works. So, and proof that the it's proof that the law of attraction or manifesting, it's just proof that it works. Like it proves that thoughts are things. So when I first heard Napoleon Hill talk about thoughts are things, and he talked about the ether, which is what I talked about in the beginning of this, I was absolutely blown away because I had never heard of this concept before. It was brand new to me. And so I started to believe it, and I started to really watch myself. Now, in the beginning, and even today, like most of the time, because we can't stop negative thoughts from happening. We just don't want to live with negative thoughts for a long period of time, because the thoughts are things. You're creating negative things that are happening in your life from your negative thoughts. And we can't just be positive thinking all the time. It just doesn't work that way. Like, you're going to have the negative thoughts. Um, and that's okay. But as soon as you become aware, because I told you earlier, awareness is always the first step. Once you become aware, then you start to recognize that thought pattern. You can break the thought pattern. And then I just want you to think of what would be the opposite of that negative thing. Like, if it's, let's say it's surrounding finding people for your team. Oh, well, nobody wants to work. There's no good people anymore. You know, all the guys who have all the people who have all the experience, they're already comfortable in another business doing, you know, and they're happy in another business. I what do I have to offer? Why would they come work for me? Well, then what is the opposite of that? Like, the opposite of that might be people love to come to work for me. People love to uh people are searching for the opportunity that I can give. I just got to find them. So it changes the way you feel about it. And it's back to that emotion and that feeling, getting on that right frequency, like visualizing, having 5 perfect candidates walk through your door. I'm telling you, try it. You will not be disappointed. It's not something you just do once, and there's no timeline on when it's going to happen. But the more time that you spend in the emotion, in the feeling like the universe is working for me, the ether, God, universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it's working for you. It wants to see you succeed. When you start to believe that, and you start to see all of the things that are already here in front of you because you've become aware, because you've determined what it is you want, then magic happens. I can't explain it. So that might be woo woo, like what actually turns it into reality, even though I understand that it all exists. It already exists right now. Everything you want exists right now. But when it actually comes to fruition and you're holding that check in your hand or you're walking through your new shop, it's magical. So getting your mind right is keeping your head out of the gutter. It does take a lot of intention in the beginning, but eventually you rewire your brain. And once you rewire your brain, you don't automatically go to those negative thoughts instantly anymore. Or if you do, you stay there for a lot shorter period of time. And once you do that, your mind automatically if you get in the habit of like, what's the opposite of this thought? Once you become aware of this negative thought, what is the opposite of this? Right? And you start asking yourself that question, then things can shift and things can change and get better. So I hope this was helpful. This is how you begin this rewiring process, and you fix your mindset, like get your mind right. It's simple. It's not always easy. And you're still going to have negative thoughts, and you're still going to have bad days. But what you'll find is that you'll have a lot less of them, and you'll suffer for a far shorter period of time. So I could talk about this for another hour, but stay tuned for more videos. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell, hit the like button, leave me a comment below. And if you're looking to grow your HVAC business, like my channel is sponsored by HVAC Millionaire University. We do weekly calls. You've got a ton of content to learn from, go from, methods that you just plug and play into your business. Like, you have to do the work. Here's the method. Here, plug it in, use it, and then watch the results happen. They're just proven, time-tested, timeless methods that work in the HVAC business. I've been in the industry for, I was a service tech for 20 some years, probably 23 years, something like that. And then my business got to a point where I didn't have to run calls anymore. And I allowed my general manager to run it. I was still involved in the operations, just not in the day-to-day stuff. So that's possible for you if that's what you want. I wound up exiting my business for very respectable amount of money that I had visualized. Crazy. It's just crazy. But this stuff works. Don't let anybody tell you different. And keep your head up, keep moving forward, keep taking a step in the direction that you want, but see it, visualize it, feel it, and you'll get there a lot faster. Love you guys. Go make money. Boom.